Disrupted, My Misadventure in the Startup Bubble by Dan Lyons. Picture this. You're 52 years old. You've spent decades perfecting your craft, earning your stripes as a respected writer at Newsweek, one of the world's most iconic magazines. Your job isn't just what you do, it's who you are. Then one day your phone rings. One cold clinical conversation later, and poof, it's all gone. Your position has been eliminated. Fast forward 9 months. After wrestling with fear and uncertainty, you've somehow managed to pull off the impossible. You've reinvented yourself. Now you're stepping into the sleek, modern headquarters of one of the hottest tech startups on the East Coast. Everywhere you look, there are vibrant colors, endless snacks, and the infectious energy of youth. This place doesn't just offer a job. It promises a mission, a purpose. This is your fresh start, your comeback story. You stride over to your new desk, ready to dive in. But wait, where's your chair? Instead, sitting there like some kind of practical joke, is a giant orange rubber bouncy ball. And in that surreal moment, as you're staring at this absurd ball, trying to figure out how to perch on it without face-planting in front of 24 colleagues who could all be your kids, a tiny voice in your head whispers, "You've made a terrible mistake." This is Dan Lyons, true story, a veteran journalist who took a flying leap into the bizarre, bewildering, and often laugh-out-loud funny world of a tech startup. His book, Disrupted, isn't just a workplace memoir, it's a backstage pass to modern work culture. It's a world overflowing with promises to change the world, but also packed with Nerf gun wars, cult-like company mantras, and a level of weirdness that's almost too strange to be real. What Dan discovered is something many of us sense, but struggle to articulate. Behind the craft beer on tap, the nap pods, and all the talk of being a family, the modern workplace can be a profoundly weird place. By the end of today's journey, you'll crack the code of this strange new world. You'll learn to spot the difference between a genuine mission and slick corporate marketing. And most importantly, you'll see how one person's misadventure became a powerful lesson in charting your own course, no matter what stage of life you're in. Our story doesn't start with fireworks. It begins with a quiet, soul-crushing phone call. Dan Lyons is riding high. He's the technology editor at Newsweek, doing work he loves on topics that fascinate him. He's in his early 50s, happily married with 2 young children, feeling secure in his career. Then the floor drops out. Summer of 2012, his editor, a friend he's known for 2 decades, calls him. "I've got some bad news," she says. "Your position is being eliminated." Just like that. No warning signs. Barely any severance. Just 2 weeks. Pay and then silence. The magazine industry, like so many traditional businesses, is being swallowed whole by the internet, and he's collateral damage. The bitter irony? Not long before this, Newsweek had published a cover story called "The Beached White Male," about successful middle-aged men getting laid off and finding themselves virtually unemployable. Suddenly, Dan isn't writing the story. He is the story. The terror of never working again settles in like a fog. He scrambles to take a demanding job as an editor for a small tech website called ReadWrite, which forces him to constantly fly between coasts, living out of San Francisco hotels. It pays the bills, but it's grinding him down. But being in San Francisco, the beating heart of the new tech explosion, plants an idea. Everywhere he looks, there's a modern-day gold rush. College dropouts in hoodies are raising millions for companies selling scooter rentals or $7 artisanal toast. It feels eerily similar to the first dot-com bubble of the late 90s, an era he covered as a journalist, a time of wild hype that ended in spectacular flames. He knows deep down it's probably a house of cards waiting to collapse. But this time, something's different. Maybe it's age, or family responsibilities, or just exhaustion from clinging to a sinking ship. One evening over drinks with an investment banker friend, he has an epiphany. His friend tells him a tsunami of cash, we're talking $1 trillion wealth transfer, is about to flood Silicon Valley. He leans in conspiratorially and shares an old Wall Street wisdom: when the ducks quack, feed them. Translation: right now, investors are ravenous for anything resembling a tech startup. Don't question it. Just give them what they want. In that moment, Dan decides he's done watching from the sidelines. He's jumping into the game. He's going to feed those ducks. He just needs to find the right startup to bet his future on. Enter HubSpot, a software company practically in his own backyard in Massachusetts. He'd never heard of them, but his venture capital buddies assure him it's the real deal, a unicorn, heading straight for a massive public offering. They make something called inbound marketing software, tools to help businesses attract customers online instead of chasing them with annoying ads. The interviews are intoxicating. He meets the co-founders Brian Halligan and Dharmesh Shah, two MIT grads who seem genuinely smart and grounded. They tell him their company Blog, their main marketing engine, has gone downhill, and they desperately need someone with his caliber to elevate it. They offer him an impressive title, Marketing Fellow. It sounds distinguished, almost academic, like he'll be some kind of wise advisor. He turns down other offers, including one that would have paid significantly more, and places his bet on HubSpot. This, he believes, is his golden ticket. April 15, 2013, his first day, he arrives at the beautifully renovated brick building, palms, slightly sweaty, ready to launch his new chapter. And this is where the dream starts crumbling. Nobody's expecting him. The young receptionist has no record of his arrival. His hiring manager, the chief marketing officer they call Cranium, isn't even in the office. Neither is his supposed deputy, nicknamed Wingman. Dan finds himself awkwardly planted on an orange couch in the lobby, watching TED Talks on an endless loop, confusion mounting by the minute. Eventually, a friendly 20-something named Zach rescues him. Zach gives him the grand tour, and the office looks less like a professional workplace and more like a preschool designed by someone on an energy drink binge. Bright colors assault the eyes from every direction. There's a nap room, complete with hammocks, kitchens overflowing with espresso machines and free beer, and the office's crown jewel, an entire wall of candy dispensers. Dogs wander the halls freely. Nerf gun battles spontaneously erupt across open workspaces, and every 3 months, everyone shuffles desks in what they call a seating hack to embrace constant change. It all feels slightly forced, like everyone's trying just a bit too hard to convince themselves they're having the time of their lives. After the tour, Zach leads him into a conference room to sketch out the organizational structure on a whiteboard. He draws an intricate tree of marketing teams, and as he does, a horrifying realization dawns on Dan. Zach draws his own name on the chart directly above the content team. "Wait a second," Dan says, his voice catching. "Does that mean you're my boss?" The blood drains from his face. Zach graduated from college 5 years ago. 9 months earlier, Dan was technology editor of Newsweek, someone whose phone calls Zach wouldn't have been able to get returned. Now this kid is his manager. But wait, it gets better. Zach walks him to a cramped, shoebox-sized room where about 20 young women are hunched over laptops. This, they actually call it, is the, quote, content factory. These are his new colleagues, fresh college graduates who seem to be named exclusively Ashley or Brittany. They crank out blog posts with thrilling titles, like 5 Ways to Make Your Landing Pages Awesome. Dan Lyons, seasoned journalist, has just become a cog in a machine that mass-produces forgettable marketing fluff. Then Zach points to his desk. And there it is, that giant orange bouncy ball, sitting there like a bad joke. This marks the beginning of Dan's immersion into what he comes to call the happy, awesome startup cult. Every new employee endures a 2-week orientation that feels less like job training and more like joining a movement. Their instructor, a guy named Dave, tells them with complete sincerity, HubSpot is leading a revolution, a movement. HubSpot is changing the world. He explains that they're not just blasting out marketing emails, They're creating lovable marketing content. It's pure corporate doublespeak. The junk mail they help companies send isn't spam, it's anti-spam. They even have t-shirts proclaiming, "Make love, not spam." The new recruits, mostly kids in their first real jobs, seem to drink the Kool-Aid enthusiastically. They're told it's harder to land a job at HubSpot than to get into Harvard, a laughable claim that everyone parrots with straight-faced pride. The company has its own dialect, which Dan dubs Hubspeak. People casually toss around terms like KPIs, key performance indicators, DRIs, directly responsible individuals, and SFTC, solve for the customer. When someone gets fired, they don't call it getting fired. It's a graduation. An email goes out. Team, just wanted to let you know Derek has graduated from HubSpot, and we're thrilled to see how he uses his superpowers in his next adventure. And just like that, Derek vanishes. The culture runs on a 128-slide PowerPoint deck called The Culture Code, created by co-founder Dharmesh Shah. It defines what it means to be HubSpotty through an acronym called HEART: humble, effective, adaptable, remarkable, and transparent. On paper, it's corporate utopia. In practice, it feels uncomfortably cult-like. The absurdity peaks when Dan discovers Molly. One day, everyone in marketing gets ordered to promote a new article by Dharmesh, explaining his revolutionary management technique. He brings a teddy bear to executive meetings. The teddy bear, named Molly, sits in a chair representing the customer's perspective. Dan is speechless. Grown professionals are sitting in serious meetings, addressing a teddy bear, treating this like groundbreaking innovation. But when he checks the online comments, people are gushing about it. "What brilliant thinking," they write. He feels like he's living in an alternate reality. The company suffers from what Steve Jobs famously called a quote-quote bozo explosion. Mediocre early employees have climbed the ladder and now run the show, completely believing their own hype. Cranium, the CMO, regularly sends emails declaring they're the world's best marketing department, claiming that giants like Facebook and Google are jealous. It's pure delusion. Dan tries to actually do the job he was hired for, elevate the blog's quality. He writes a thoughtful, detailed memo with constructive feedback. Zach, his young boss, promptly shares it with the very women who run the blog. From that moment on, they hate his guts. His articles get delayed endlessly, rejected repeatedly, and edited into oblivion. He finally grasps the blog's real purpose. It has absolutely nothing to do with thought leadership or quality journalism. Its sole function is generating leads for the sales department. Every post is engineered to get Mary the marketer, their fictional target customer, to download an ebook and surrender her email address. Dan's thoughtful, intelligent articles don't generate leads. He's not helping the numbers. He's actively hurting them. His boss, Wingman, eventually tells him they need to abandon the experiment with smart content and make the blog, in Dan's words, a lot more dumberer. Frustrated, Dan goes around everyone and pitches a new concept directly to the founders, Halligan and Shaw, a separate, high-quality online magazine. They love it. They give him the green light and tell him to run with it. He's ecstatic. Finally, his chance to do meaningful work. But in HubSpot's bizarre universe, approval from the founders means nothing. The middle managers, Cranium and Wingman, quietly strangle the project in its crib. Instead of running his own magazine, Dan gets relocated from the content factory to the loudest space in the building, the telemarketing call center, which employees call the Spider Monkey Room. It's a deafening boiler room where young sales reps in backward baseball caps bark into headsets all day, frantically chasing their quotas. This, he realizes with sinking clarity, is HubSpot's real heartbeat. Not the feel-good culture code, but this high-pressure, burn-them-out sales machine. Just when he's ready to throw in the towel, a new boss arrives to run the content team. They call him Trotsky. At first, he seems like a fellow adult in a daycare center. He's in his 40s, covered in tattoos, and appears to see HubSpot's absurdity just as clearly as Dan does. He tells Dan he's being completely wasted and promises to give him substantial work. For a brief moment, things look up. Then comes the New York Times interview. CEO Brian Halligan says something truly jaw-dropping. In the tech world, gray hair and experience are really overrated. Dan, the gray-haired, experienced guy in the room, can't help himself. He posts a sarcastic comment on Facebook, sharing the article with the caption, "Says the CEO of the company where I work," though his actual phrasing was considerably more colorful. The post explodes. Hundreds of people pile on with comments, sharing their own stories of age discrimination in tech. It becomes a PR nightmare for HubSpot. Spinner, the PR chief, and Cranium are furious. Dan figures he's about to get fired, but then he realizes something crucial. They can't fire him. Terminating an older employee for calling out ageist comments from the CEO would be a legal and PR disaster, especially with an IPO looming. His sarcastic comment has, ironically, made him untouchable. But if they can't fire him, they can make his life so miserable he'll quit. And his supposed friend Trotsky becomes the weapon of choice. Overnight, Trotsky transforms from ally to tormentor. The friendly colleague vanishes, replaced by a cold, calculating manager. Every tiny action gets scrutinized. A harmless joke on Facebook about a past office disagreement becomes a grave error that nearly gets him terminated. He endures a humiliating annual review where Trotsky gives him a score of 2 out of 5 for his heart. Trotsky reveals he asked 2 colleagues for feedback, and neither would even respond. "What do you think that says about you?" Trotsky asks, twisting the knife deeper. He even claims he spoke to someone from Dan's previous job, who supposedly called Dan smart, but, quote, implying Dan's been universally disliked his entire career without realizing it. It's psychological warfare designed to break him down. Just as Dan hits rock bottom, salvation appears. He gets a call from a Hollywood agent. The creators of the HBO show Silicon Valley want him on their writing staff. It's a lifeline. He takes a leave of absence from HubSpot and spends 14 glorious weeks in Los Angeles, working with genuinely brilliant, funny people in a world where sarcasm isn't a firing offense, it's literally the job. The experience is liberating and makes one thing crystal clear: he can never go back to HubSpot. He returns to Boston only to quit. The process is as cold and weird as everything else at the company. Despite giving 6 weeks' notice, he's immediately terminated. His laptop gets confiscated, and security escorts him out of the building. His graduation is complete. In the end, no criminal charges get filed, and the company never explains what actually happened. But the scandal confirms everything Dan experienced. Behind the cheerful, colorful orange ball facade lurked something deeply, strangely dysfunctional. The company he'd bet on did have its successful IPO. The founders and investors made a fortune. But for Dan Lyons, the misadventure was over. He'd gone searching for a new career, and instead found a story, one darker, funnier, and far more human than he ever imagined. When you encounter a story like Dan Lyons' journey through HubSpot, it's tempting to focus on the comedy of it all, the teddy bears in meetings, the bouncy balls, the bizarre corporate language. And yes, it's definitely entertaining. But if we stop there, we miss the deeper lesson this book offers, especially for anyone just beginning to think seriously about their career path. What Disrupted reveals is that in today's workplace, the story a company tells about itself is often its most valuable product. HubSpot wasn't just selling software. It was selling a vision, a movement, a lifestyle. They created a narrative so compelling, with a mission so seemingly inspiring, that young employees willingly worked incredibly hard for modest compensation, genuinely believing they were part of something special. They loved the company. It became their identity. And that's where the cautionary tale lies. This book teaches us to look beyond the surface. A candy wall is nice, but it reveals nothing about how a company treats people when things get difficult. A playful culture seems attractive, but what happens to those who don't fit the mold, whether because of age, personality, or perspective? The book challenges us to become sharper observers of the world around us. So as you consider the places you might one day work, here are some guiding principles to carry with you from this story. First, learn to distinguish between perks and culture. Free snacks are perks. Culture is how people actually behave, especially when leadership isn't watching. Culture reveals itself in how a company handles failure, disagreement, and departures. A company that calls termination at graduation isn't being positive, it's dodging uncomfortable truth. Seek out places that value genuine honesty over manufactured happiness. Second, pay attention to language. Is it stuffed with buzzwords, acronyms, and slogans that feel like secret codes, or do people communicate like actual human beings? Real communities thrive on clear, honest communication, not on private jargon designed to separate insiders from outsiders. And finally, trust your instincts. Dan felt out of place from day one because, in that environment, he genuinely was. He tried to ignore his gut and force himself to fit in, but his internal compass was telling him the truth all along. If a place feels wrong, if it demands you pretend to be someone you're not, listen to that feeling. It's often the wisest guide you have. In the end, Dan's time at HubSpot wasn't a failure. It was an education. He thought he was leaving journalism behind, but his misadventure led him straight back to his true calling, storytelling. He joined the writing team of a hit TV show and wrote this book, transforming a difficult chapter into wisdom and humor for the rest of us. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the wrong path is exactly what we need to discover the right one. That was our deep dive into Disrupted by Dan Lyons. We've explored the main journey today, but remember, a summary is like looking at a map of an amazing city. It shows you the layout, but it can't capture what it actually feels like to walk those streets. The real power of this book lives in the small moments, the sharp observations, and the sheer wit of Dan's voice. This summary exists to help you decide if this journey is worth taking. If any part of this story has sparked your curiosity or made you rethink the nature of work, I encourage you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning. It's an experience that might genuinely shift how you see your path forward. You'll find the link to the book in the description below. Also, if you found this exploration valuable, it would mean the world if you'd hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss our next adventure into another transformative book from the billionaire's bookshelf. Let's keep growing together.